It's the end of summer and we're already thinking about next year's gardens. Should you be thinking about it? Well, Batavia and I are here to see if you want to think about it or if you should think about it and how you should think about it. Welcome to the Backyard Gardens Podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens Podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country,
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening as we learn to grow and grow for change. Was that enough questions in one sentence?
No, I was thinking maybe 4 or 5 more.
4 or 5 more?
Yeah, I think you missed
My
why.
mind's not working that fast.
Yeah.
I think I said why.
Okay. Maybe my ears aren't working that fast.
So, are you ready for to take a test?
Is it like the DMV test? Did I ever tell you that I've had to take that since I've had, like my first license, and I took it like the written test. I've had to take it like since I've been like a real adult. Oh, was that a pain? But yeah.
I had to take the sign test.
But that's a part of the written test, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was panicked because I was like, I don't know these signs.
I'm like
I'd never see them.
A threat to society is the way I was feeling.
I've talked to you I've talked to you while you were driving. You are a threat to society. I could hear the tires screeching. I could hear people jumping out of the way. Oh, Lord, no.
Here she comes again. Yeah.
Here she comes. It's Batavia. Watch out. That crazy gardening lady.
Wait.
All right,
Look,
so
wait, real quick. This is going back to at some point earlier in the summer. I don't think I've told you this, but if I did, hey, you'll hear it again. You may not remember any of this too, right? We'll get to that. So a neighbor like on the next block, so I'm a couple of houses from the corner, so the neighbor on the block across from me, her and her daughter were selling like snow cones or something. And so,
Right.
Support the kids. Batavia loves the kids. So I went over to buy one, and they were making it up, and I said, oh, yeah, I live right, I was pointing to my house. And she's like, oh, you're the garden lady. And I was like, saying to myself, of course I'm the garden lady. Like, why am I surprised? Of course that's the way that people refer to me. So, yeah.
You should have been honored.
Yeah. Good times.
All right. So I have a new segment that we're introducing that you don't know about.
Oh, well, welcome.
As they roll, this is what we do. Okay. So we had a listener send us a message, and we're going to answer her question on the air. Okay. Are you ready?
You are totally in my head. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Here we go. I'm going to see if I can get this to work right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it going to be that person's voice reading the question?
Yeah, I just got to get it to where it'll start where it's supposed to.
Oh, that's super cool.
All right. Here we go. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys. I was looking at my garden and thinking about the size of some of my plants. Like right now, my okra is pretty tiny. Like it's producing fruit, but it's only like
Whoops. Hit the wrong button. Here we go.
maybe a foot to 1.5 feet tall. The leaves are really small. And same with my cucumbers. And I was just wondering if you had any idea on why vegetables might be smaller than they probably should be this time of year for my zone. I mean, I'm in zone 10, so they've been growing for a while now. I'm just wondering if maybe you have any ideas on what I could do differently or things I could try. Let me know. Thank you.
Okay. So first of all, she gave us that on Instagram. She sent it to us on the Backyard Gardens pod. And what are your thoughts, Batavia?
I was looking up zone 10, trying to think about like, that's like one of the later zones.
Yeah, I mean,
she's like in Alaska or something like
Alaska. No, she's like hot.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, she's more like California. Yeah, that's the opposite.
Yeah, it's like fire. Just think about a ball of fire. That's where she's growing plants.
So I've actually had both of those things, and you'll have to give her the answer to it, because I just gave mine more time. If it's that hot, I'm inclined to think that the heat may be too much for those plants and it's kind of stunting them, is my initial thought. But at the beginning of my garden season, I had that same thing with cucumbers where they were itty bitty, but they were still producing like some weird looking cucumbers. And then the same thing with okra. I actually have a couple of okra plants in my yard now that have been in the garden for almost 3 months. And they are maybe 1.5 feet, so close to what she's saying for size, and producing flowers and then like 1 okra a day per plant. So for those, I just don't think that they're going to grow much more for the rest of this season. But when that happened originally with my okra, they just continued to get taller and taller. So my final comment is gone through it. I waited it out, but I'm going back from June through now. My probably thought for her is it may be heat for her. So I'd look back to the packaging to say, when was it recommended to plant, cucumbers and okra in zone 10?
Well, she planted them in April. So first of all, she gave us all of the information that you would really need to help dissect an issue. And what I'm thinking is, and I answered her already. I told her, heat stress is one thing. And then I told her, I was like, keep them cool. But another thing that I didn't think about at the time, and, it's a common oversight, though, is maybe it's not getting enough sun. It's getting shaded out and it's stunning its growth, and it's hard for me to think because, my garden gets sunlight all day. But when you think about it, like if it's, let's say she put it in later than something else and something in her gardening is shading it as well. So that's like a real common thing for it to be stunted, is for, a light deficiency or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, so if she plants, I didn't hear that in her clip. So she planted this in April?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She planted them in April.
That's a long time.
August.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the end of August now. So, they definitely should have grown. So there's definitely some kind of issue. And I don't know if she's a beginner gardener or not. And the only reason why that really matters is because it gives the idea that the soil would be in good condition, providing that she brought in soil, made a raised bed or, containers or something like that. Yeah. So that could be one thing, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, you may be on to something with light. Remember my buddy that was building the 4 foot tall beds or something. I was looking at some pictures of his garden and I was noticing how small some of his plants were. And same thing, like he planted, again, completely different zones. He's in zone 6A as well. But he planted around April, early May. And, obviously, I planted some of my plants in June. And I'm looking at the difference in the height. And so then that made me ask the question, like, tell me more about, because I thought we had gone over this, but tell me more about the lighting situation. Is it full sun? And it's hard to get an answer with it. He's a new gardener with full sun, with someone that kind of doesn't have that much experience. Kind of, is it sunny is a different answer when you're just talking about, is it sunny for a human being versus sunny for a garden? But that's the only thing I can come up with at this point, is that he's planted in a really shady area. So again, you may be on to something with her as well.
Well, look, let me say this, man. If you come up to me and you say, okay, you're having an issue. Are you growing in full sun, part shade, or full shade? If it's not full shade or full sun, I'm going to tell you to go to hell, because there's no exact definition. Yeah. I've looked this up multiple times. I've looked it up, and it's always something a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, there's no exact term for that, but I'm thinking that something in her garden is shading it out. That's my final answer.
Yeah.
And heat stress. I think it's a combination of both.
Okay. All right. I'd love to see,
So-
if you're listening, I'd love to see a picture of that area and one at a distance.
She's a listener.
Okay. So
Yeah, she's a listener. So
I'd love to be able to see a picture at not close up on the plants, but at a distance to kind of see what's going on around it. Because now I'm on team shading team at this point now, like maybe when it would have had some chance. Heat is now impacting because 4 months of growth is still 4 months of a plant growing,
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be interesting. But I like it. I like it a lot.
And you know what else it could be? Maybe a variety.
Well, there are some bush variety cucumbers.
There are.
And yeah. Well,
I don't.
okra not so much, but
I've seen smaller okra. So actually, I did a garden visit a couple months ago, and I went to one, and there was okra plant, a whole row of okra plants going. They were all 1 foot tall and had flowers all over them. So
okay,
I don't know.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's just kind of like maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who knows? So
yeah.
food for thought. Food for thought. So yeah, if you want us to answer your questions, please, by all means, you can send them to us a voice message or a written message. If you want us to answer a written message, then you can send it to us on Backyard Gardens Pod on Instagram. I think it's great because a lot of times it's a question that somebody might have that might not want to ask. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we can try and help. Now, the kicker is she's going to say, I get 10 hours of sun every day. And then we're like, well, damn it.
Well, you know what though? It's
So-
I'm glad you brought that back around. So, is it sunny all day versus my back porch, it's sunny for you heard that? That's how long it's sunny. The very top of my back porch. Now the sun is out all day, obviously, but if you're not really out there sitting and saying, another good way to look at it, can you sit in that spot all day without feeling like, you're going to have a sunstroke? And if the answer is no, you can't sit in that space all day. And I know I'm not saying like from sun up to sundown when I say all day, but you get my point. Like that's a way to kind of figure out if it is sunny or not. It actually ties into what we're talking about today and, planning for next year's garden because we're going through some changes. Oh, I know. You think,
wow, somebody thought ahead on that
you would
one.
have thought that was like intentional, huh? But yeah, definitely heading into some different time of the year and sunlight is being chased away. I'm trying not to get the blues.
It is. So going directly into that then, it's the end of summer. I don't know about you, but is the garden starting to wear you out a little bit?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Really?
No,
You're
I'm
still
still,
holding strong?
yeah. Well, I didn't say strong.
So it's
It's,
starting to wear you down.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
I am much more deliberate in powering through. This morning, I was in the garden for 3 hours, and I
Right.
don't plan to go back and spend any, big time for the next few days. So I'm transitioning to, I'm spending more time a few times a week. When I spend that time versus, earlier in the season, I was spending probably an hour easily a day, so
Yeah.
I had to transition.
Yeah, I'm
off of
spending
that.
a lot of time in mine right now getting fall stuff going, which then allows me to do this. Think about next year.
Well, before we think about next year, I'd like to formally
No.
apologize.
To who? Oh,
You see how quick you are with it? Listen now. Don't pass up your apology blessing now.
the fear of God just went straight through me when you looked at me. It was the most terrifying look I've ever received in my life. Wow.
It worked. All right, so we're going to try that again.
I mean, it was perfect.
We're gonna try it
No,
again.
we're not.
Yeah.
We need to just go right into it.
I'd like to formally apologize to Ben Gardner, you, my friend, my buddy, my co-host. I was such, a prima donna about planting and sowing seeds indoors earlier this summer. Like I made a big deal of it. You know, it was kicking and screaming, and it's been a good experience.
Really?
Yeah,
you enjoy it?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's because it's on so much of a smaller scale than what I was doing this spring. I feel like it's not like completely taken over. You know, you're talking like I'm going to put a load of clothes in the wash and check on the plants and then go back upstairs, you know. So and next year it'll be even better because you won't start 68 tomatoes. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if we've confirmed that, but yeah.
I think we've confirmed it privately, but maybe not on air.
But all that said, before we dig in, I would not have done it if you hadn't pushed. One, if you hadn't brought it up, and then two, if you hadn't pushed. I'd heard about, starting seeds indoors, but I was just like, those are crazy people. And when you said it, you were a crazy person too. So, so yeah.
Well, first of all, you don't have to apologize to me. Everybody kicks and screams about that stuff, but I am more than happy that you enjoy it. And I am proud of you for taking that step and going to do something that you didn't even want to do, and you succeeded at it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a good experience. It's also nice to be able to take care of plants at a different stage, because I kind of feel like some of my plants are like high school graduation just was completed. I've dropped them off at their dorm, like they're getting, used to their new friends. Like my plants are kind of grown up now, or definitely growing up. So having these small babies again.
Hell, some of mine they're with the lucky people. They got 1 foot in the grave, so they've done their life cycle. I ever tell you that story?
No.
All right, I'm gonna take a second because we were talking about the DMV. Mm-hmm. So a good friend of mine was at the DMV with his grandfather, and on the way there, he would drive and he would just look out the window and goes, "It's the lucky people. Those are the lucky people." And you're like, what the hell are you talking about? And he was looking at graveyards saying that. Mm-hmm. And, so they get to the DMV and he's standing in line. He's like, one day I'm going to be lucky. One day I'm going to be lucky. And he's like, what are you talking about? He was like, I would rather die than stand in this DMV line. It is so true, though. The man, he was like 87 years old. He had done it, so it was pretty awesome. Yeah. Gotta love him. I think he is a lucky person now because this was a number of years ago. But
God bless him. I just had that moment of how many more times I'll have to stand in the DMV line. I was just doing the math real quick, and one day to be lucky.
COVID, you don't have to now. You just mail it on in.
Oh, is that what they're doing? I just got mine renewed last year real quick because now we're clearly into like some type of random conversation.
Completely.
Yeah, so
thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't matter if I told it because it's funny, so I'll tell it again. So I went to DMV and I was all set for it to be like, I packed a lunch, right? So anyway, I get to the, whatever the window is where it's either going to go well for you or not, right? I took the best picture ever. At one point, maybe you all will see it, like of my lifetime for driver's licenses. Although I was a little bit chubby, which transitioned into like weight loss journey earlier this year. But anywho, that's not the point of the story.
If you check her Instagram profile, it's literally the picture on her profile on Instagram.
No, it's not, but that's a good picture too. Yeah. So anyway, she, it's every 4 years, right? So you don't remember what they ask you. And at this point, she asked, obviously height was the same. She asked any change in weight. Now, the weight that was on my previous driver's license had to be like 3 driver's licenses ago. So at that point, it was a lie. So 3 licenses since then, what's that, 12 years? So I said, I'm working on something. And I'm thinking in these next couple of months, it's going to be a different number. So let's go with the future number. So long and short of it, I gave her my aspiring weight goal. She seemed okay with that.
There you go.
Yeah. So
she's good. Yeah. They don't even care.
Yeah. All right, we're digging in.
Enough DMV talk because it's stressing me out because I know that one day I'll have to go back. Yeah. So when I'm out there and I'm planting my fall garden lately, which by the way is almost fully planted, kind of, I'm already thinking about next year. I'm already analyzing what the problem is, what's going on, what issues am I having, what have I done, how can I fix it? And then I start thinking about, do I want to add another garden? Now, that's something that you can think about in the winter, but right now is a very, very good time to think about it.
Yeah. So,
do you know why?
Well, my opinion on the reason why it's a very good time to think about it is you're in the throes of what the work is like to manage the gardens you have. So the number of garden beds you have it's fresh in your mind how much work it took to manage them over these last few months. You can see most things and the sizes that they are. And if you've pulled things out, you at least probably still remember what they are. So you're in the moment, right? This isn't December. It isn't January when you're posting throwback pictures on Instagram about what your garden looked like. So you're right in the thick of it. And I think it's a really good time to kind of measure out, do you want to commit to more? Right. And that's just even talking about increasing your footprint. I mean, there's so many other things that it's a benefit to think about now when it comes to planning for next year. Why are you thinking about adding a garden now? Why do you think it's a good time?
Not why am I thinking about it, but what is important about it is seeing where the sun is hitting during the days now versus in January after you go and you wake up in the morning on Christmas Day and you get your little soaker hose and you get you a couple pots and a couple books for Christmas and you get all excited and you're like, okay, we're going to go plan one. And you go, look, and the sun is different. Okay. There's no leaves.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And then the second thing is in the wintertime, the sun doesn't get as high in the sky as it does basically. And even now is a little lower, but you get a really good idea now. So it's a very good time to think about that. So you don't have shading issues, right? So like for me, I am a victim of that. I have 2 gardens that are packed into the woods and they get very good sun up until about now. And now they start shading out slowly but surely. So, I accept that for what it is because of what they are. But at the same time, it's just an idea, to keep in your head, like this could be an issue.
Well, that's,
so you're already eliminating something that you cannot change.
So that one's wrapped up in everything. Not only is it important when you're thinking about expanding your garden, so where would you put it, that extra bed, right, when it comes to the sun. It's also generally important for when you're thinking about your garden layout, period, right? So for me, when this airs, it'll be roughly around month 3 of my garden growing. And to your point, most things are kind of at their peak, but I still need some things to ripen. I'm at the point of planting my fall garden. So again, that sun is important.
Wait. You're planting your fall garden? I would give you a hug if I was sitting right next to you, Batavia.
I already apologized.
I think proud of you.
I apologize because I totally rolled my eyes. Right?
I'm
by the
so proud
time
of
this
Batavia,
airs,
everybody.
I will be planting my fall garden. I have fall starts, but I'm going to wait until around September 1st ish. So it's a stone's throw away. But it's a very good point because I have super duper small bed, which I've mentioned, and I'm now trying to get an idea of 2 things. To your point, how much sun that spot gets. I know it's a shady, it's not a full sun spot, right? It's kind of like I mentioned before, right up next to the porch, the front porch. And now you fold in, there's less sun hours. So whatever I plant there, whether it's in this, specifically in the summer coming into fall, it's practically a shady spot. So I got to think about that, probably should be planting some of my heat loving veggies there, for next year. So yeah, I mean, that's, if I had a list, which I may or may not, that'd probably be number 1, considering the change in the days. Cause that also folds.
Which I may or may not. Yeah. I love it.
Since that also falls into, kind of just growing time in general. We have less growing, meaning hours of the day, right? You have less sun hours of the day. And that's going to impact those things that say it takes 60 days to grow, but that's another conversation. That's more about, fall.
Well, that's exactly right. And by the way, if you're planting a fall garden and you're in the lower zone now, because it's too late for the northern zones, add 2 weeks on to your seed packet times because of the lower sun. Yeah. So that's important. But so that's where you start, right? That's one thing that you can start thinking about. And then, I always start like I said, right now, because I'm dealing with the problems right now. Like I have very specific problems that are just frustrating right now, and my issue is right now is the way I planted in a way that is not overly conducive to switching over to a fall garden the way I wanted to, because like tomatoes do not play well with a lot of your fall or spring vegetables.
Okay.
So that being said, it's time to think like, okay, I planned it out this year and I planned it per season, but I need to do a more wholesome planning for next year. I really need to like bust out the looking glass and look into the future and say, okay, I'm going to plant tomatoes here, but what can I plant after the tomatoes to make that, all work well?
Yeah.
So, and it's a lot of work, but I think first of all, in the wintertime when you're not doing anything, like who cares? Like what else are you going to do? For your garden. Seriously, what are you going to do? Are you going to go out and like chip the ice off your garden?
Not here. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So you might as well learn some shit. You know what I mean? Like, get your education on it. So
I've been on the cusp of that as well for the last few years. And that's a part of the reason why I've shied away from a fall garden, because it's a lot of work. And the interesting thing is, I don't want to say you're one and done, but once you put that initial time investment in, it's going to be much more easy kind of the following seasons and so on. But that upfront work when it comes to, pulling plants out, moving plants in, I was thinking about it this morning. One thing that I've not done really is succession planting. And so that's another thing that I want to kind of pick up on, because I'm looking at spots now, and we talk a lot about pulling plants out. It's not my thing, but it's a lot easier as you look to say, okay, I have something else to plop in,
right.
So yeah, it's easy for me now. It's very easy for me now to see kind of where the holes are in my garden as the garden is at. Like right now it's in its prime for me, again, at the end of August. And so I'm getting an idea of these plants are going to, they're about as big as they're going to get when it comes to my summer plants. So now what,
Yeah.
So.
By the way, if you're watching this and you see me patting myself on my forehead, I got hit in the face with a surfboard today, and I'm making sure that it's not blowing up. So
yeah, I'm watching you.
I'm not being weird and like sweating or anything. I'm medical check. But so like right now, remember
how many fingers?
4? No, 2. So like right now, I have the disease on my tomato plants, right? And man, they were loaded with tomatoes. Yeah. So they're ripening what was on them and stuff, and I'm starting to get towards the end. So I'm thinking like, okay, what can I do? So I'm going to get very specific here.
Okay.
I want to put cauliflower in. Okay. We all know that Papa Bear is not a fan of cauliflower. All right. But I do like one specific recipe. Yeah. And I've had these seedlings sitting out by my garden for 2 weeks now while I try and figure out where can I put them. I've looked it up. Like, okay, how far to plant away from combative plants? Okay. How far do you have to plant? Well, I can tell you that there is not a single site on Google that will tell you the answer to that. Okay. I did dig into some forums from like 15 years ago, maybe, like early days. Yeah. And a lot of people, you've got mail.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I saw a clip of the You've Got Mail guy.
He's real?
Yeah, he's a real guy, his real voice.
I hate that guy.
He still uses, that email carrier. Weird, yeah.
He uses AOL?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Still.
Man,
yeah.
he must be the only person.
No, they're a couple. I've seen them around, and quite literally a couple.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think my in-laws still use AOL. But what I have deduced, and I think this is about as much information as I'm going to get, is if you have plants that are combative, you plant them far. So like a cauliflower goes in a square foot and the tomato grows 2.5 feet. So you're going to want your cauliflower to be 2.5 feet from the outside of that tomato plant. Okay. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, all right, I've got some, some of them are growing leaves back. One of them is just not. I'm just going to take it out and then I'm going to plop them in there. And then in time, because, and I also think that if I'm not mistaken, the cauliflower stunts the growth of tomatoes.
Okay.
That's why they're combative. So at this point, it's like, whatever, okay, you're going to stunt the growth of my diseased ass tomatoes. Good for you,
Yeah.
So it's just kind of one of those things. But, you start looking into these things. But if I would have planned ahead, then I would know. So now I know for next year, like, okay, this is what I'm going to try and grow. And then, and once you get that schedule down, then it's just a rotation deal. If you do crop rotation, you're just rotating.
Yeah. So can I add one to that?
Yeah, please.
So, size of plants and your ability to navigate around them. So we've talked about, we believe a lot of our listeners are, kind of small gardeners, gardening in your community garden space or in your home garden.
You mean small gardens or small people?
I mean small gardens. I mean small gardens.
No, the reason why I ask is because I'm bigger. My shoulders, I can't get through anything.
Yeah, well, you know what? I guess it's connected to what I'm about to say then. All right. Okay. I'm going to get off your back here. All right. Step back just a minute. So
an angel just got its wings.
Twice, right?
Yeah.
So I have in the front yard garden, you'll bleep that out. There is a fence that separates my property from my neighbors. And I have a garden bed that's probably about 2.5 feet from the fence. So it's for me just enough walking space, right? I'm not going to walk in that space with like a basket comfortably. I'm kind of shimmying, if I'm carrying anything. So I planted okra, back to the top of the show, towards the end of that bed. But it's basically okra, walking space, then fence. And I did 2 rows of okra. So one on the outside of the bed and one kind of in the middle of the bed.
Good God. Why do you have so much okra, woman?
Well, who knows? No one has these answers. Come on. And it's a pain in the ass. 2 reasons. One, and this is the second space in the front yard garden I've planted okra. I had okra in a different spot last year. It was a pain in the ass there too. So you know how it is. I'm cutting out okra morning and night. And so you fold in, it was getting dark at like 8:30 my time earlier in the summer. Now it's closer to 7. So I am going out and it's like dusk. Cobwebs are out. Bees are taking naps on the okra. I'm trying to shimmy in between with my, pruners, and like it's just a pain in the butt. And even seeing the okra, right? Because it's not like a tomato where if you should have harvested it today and you don't cut it off, until tomorrow, it's not that big of a deal in most cases. Tomorrow morning, that okra may not even be usable, right? So it's a whole routine that I have to go through to be able to, 1, see the pods, 2, get to them, 3, cut them out. So this is such a good time for me to think about next year's garden, because I'm literally thinking, we'll pretend as if I'm thinking how many okra plants I'll plant. I'm not really thinking that.
Right.
I should be, but what I'm really thinking about is where's a convenient place to let this okra do its thing, because it's about 6 to 7 feet tall. So not only am I trying to get into this narrow space, I'm also reaching awkwardly. It's a pain. I'm an okra lover, but that was a bad call. Now, 2 things. I put it all the way in that corner because I knew how tall okra got and I didn't want to shade out other things in my garden. So I basically put it in the furthest end from the garden, which it's effective from not shading out other things, but it's a pain in the butt for this gardener. So that's an example. It doesn't have to be okra. It could be any number of other things, but the space, how big that plant's going to get, can you get to it if you need to prune it? Can you get to it if you need to pick fruit off of it? Like we got to think about those things.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, again, if you thought about it in January, would you really have that memory? And I'm going to go ahead and call it a sour memory.
Yeah.
Where you just kind of, you go out there and you don't really enjoy going out to that section as much because it's such a pain in the ass.
I'm literally like, I think the okra is flowering. I think I think this is the end of it. Like I'm ready for it to be done. And in January, I would remember like it not being convenient, but just like I remembered it not being convenient in the first place, but it would be like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. And then I would have convinced myself that it's still in a convenient space when it comes to the other vegetables. But I've made up my mind that that's not the space for it. So now I have two things I want to accomplish in next year's garden when it comes to my okra, not shading out other things, but also making it more convenient. And that's probably, all right, buckle up, guys and gals. That's probably going to mean also planting less okra plants. Like there are tears being shed somewhere, and it could be here. But yeah, it's just, it's too much of an inconvenience for me at this point versus a benefit.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. I think I agree with you completely. And that's why now is the time to really take advantage of that and just, get on it and go out there and really like look at it and say, okay, like, and it really comes down like right now, I think, because, okra is another one that shades out. You know what I mean? Like when I have one of my okras is shading out stuff. So I know that like, and I knew when I put it in too, that was a thing. I was like, I need to put an okra somewhere. And I was like, I'm going to put it right here. It'll be fine. You know what? It's not really that fine. It's causing issues. So another thing is looking at different varieties that you've planted and saying, you know what, maybe I don't like this variety. I grew Better Boy tomatoes this year. I'm not a fan. They get too big. They're too big. They're unruly. And they, we had a drought this year and they split really easily. And I've grown Roma tomatoes every year and I never have them split. So I'll find another, what I call a meaty tomato for next year. That's, you know what I mean? Something that's not so insanely large.
Yeah. That's literally, you're in my garden right now. So I have a huge harvest of tomatoes, and I have 2 beefsteak plants, and there's some significant cracking going on. The size of the tomatoes are inconsistent, which isn't that big of a deal. But for me, it's like I am rinsing off some things. We talked about that earlier, but not everything. Like I'm eating it right in the yard, so there's no confusion around kind of which tomato. And I'm battling like flavor. So my beefsteaks are kind of like, whereas all of my cherry tomatoes naturally, quite literally naturally, are sweeter. But my early girl tomatoes are... It's a meaty tomato, not as big as your beefsteak, but very consistent. The seeds that I have, the plants that I started, like very sizable for the ones I planted in the ground. So I'm also making decisions around variety as well. I think now I'm on a search for like a bigger, a different, bigger tomato. So I don't think beefsteak is it. For me, this is the second or third year I've just kind of been like, with the beefsteak.
Well, and this feeds into me. I've expressed interest in doing an heirloom, more heirlooms next year. And one thing, like I always knew that, like, okay, you can save seeds from heirlooms, and you know what you're gonna get versus hybrids. You're not, which would be I think beefsteaks. Your Better Boys, stuff like that.
It's a hybrid,
you start getting all these weird ass tomatoes. Well, they're just heirlooms. And so the cutoff year for it to be considered an heirloom, I believe, was 1951.
Okay. I thought 1950.
Anything that was growing
Mm-hmm.
up until 1951 is considered an heirloom. Now, the benefit behind it is you get better flavor, supposedly. So, that's another thing that's kind of like driving me closer to doing it. It's one of those things. It's interesting. And I've thought about it a lot this year. Like every time I go out in my garden and I just think about it, I look at these issues I have this year, because I've had a lot of issues and I've had a very successful garden. Overall, I'm satisfied, but I did not produce as much. Like I got the pickle worm this year and I never even knew there was a such thing. Well, apparently once you get it, you can't get rid of it. So I had no clue. So like, all right, I got pickle worm. Great. So, it's just stuff like that. And then you start thinking about doing heirlooms. Well, some of these things are designed not to have these issues. They're bred in this manner. So that being said, like, and then I got the septoria leaf spot, which basically was my fault. From what I understand, it was a little bit of both, but I take responsibility for it. But then you look at how it can devastate your harvest and your, just everything. You're like, well, what should I do at this point then? Should I not be heirloom? Should I be heirloom? So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take what I've been successful at and go heirloom. And like, I wasn't successful at cucumbers this year, maybe, or not maybe, I just wasn't. So, and which is the first year ever, because they're generally pretty easy to grow. And I'm going to see like, hey, is there something that's not pickle worm resistant? You know what I mean? Because for two reasons, and I haven't done a lot of research on it, but if it lives in the dirt, then I need to say, maybe I need to spend another year on something that's resistant to it so it can't come back and it can kind of live its cycle and starve out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
So, it's a whole lot of research on that aspect, and now is a good time because you can say, okay, I got pickle worm here. I got leaf spot here. These did great. This didn't do good, and then like my whole square foot gardening thing, like there's definitely 100% loopholes in that. And their spacing that they recommended just did not work out in some aspects. Like carrots, for example, that's 16 carrots in a square foot is just a little too much. They crowd each other out.
Yeah.
So, but now I know. And so then next year I can make a better plan. But if I look back at it in January, I wouldn't remember it that way. I know I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think,
Maybe.
no, you wouldn't. And we're just using January as kind of we're in the new year and all of that. But you start to remember things as you want them to be, not as they actually were, and it's
Exactly.
it's a human thing to do.
Exactly.
I think that, is it a year ago or am I go?
I don't know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So another one is, and this one's tricky because there's no guarantee. I actually, a couple of last year's videos came up in my notifications, and there was a comment around your favorite kale, and so last year I had so much kale, too much kale. I went through the whole, I overplanted. There was some shading out of, the kale took over and other things suffered. And I look now and say, gosh, like literally none of the curly kale. I don't have any of it in my garden. And so now it's really that question of evaluating what you have and what you really want to grow. And the reason why I say it's tricky is there's still no guarantee that you're going to get the quantity that you want. I mean, some of your issues are prime examples of that. But it's, I'm teetering on taking a chance next year, which is ironic based on your experience with cucumbers, and either just planting fewer or doing some succession planting, because I really, for whatever reason, cucumbers, I have been insistent on pickling cucumbers. And I like pickles, but I'm kind of like, I've gone months without eating pickles. And so I eat far more tomato cucumber salads than I do just regular pickles, right? And I can eat those fresh, right? So I was saying to myself, while space isn't that big of an issue in that particular bed where the cucumbers are, I am generally saying like, I don't need all of these. And
No, you don't.
And so the question is, I don't need all of them right now because you know how pickles come on or cucumbers come on, like gangbusters, and so.
I don't know. I forgot.
Yeah, sorry,
you
bud.
keep using these as references to me the past couple of days.
What did I tell you
and
earlier?
I'm taking it
Cool as a cucumber.
And I'm like, I wouldn't know what that means.
Yeah, but no, in all seriousness, it's the, I was watching, another gardener. I'm trying to think what she was using as the reference. She talked about, it was in an Instagram post, and I know her. I actually met her through the whole 80,000 tomato plants, and her mom stopped by to look at the garden. I ended up giving her some plants. Yeah. So she was posting about how she really is focused on growing the things that she really, really enjoys versus, oh, that's cool. And I think we all bounce back and forth between that space, in our garden lives. And she'll probably be in another space in some years and for, like she wants to grow cool things or things that she finds interesting. But you absolutely...
I've never grown something I thought was cool.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about how you and I are very different gardeners in that way.
We're very different. I've always have and always will grow stuff that I intend to fully consume.
Yeah. And so for me, I intend to fully consume it until, it's like the cucamelons. And I'm like, well, I don't know. These ain't that good. But I bring it up from a quantity standpoint. So the cucumbers, too many, and so tomatoes, the jury is still out, right? We'll see how much sauce and how many diced tomatoes and like how many this makes up. I kind of feel like I may have gotten it right, but we'll see again, to be determined.
Well, I mean, think about it this way too. When you talk about tomatoes, like how many different ways are there to preserve tomatoes? I mean, cucumbers.
Yeah,
wow, the whole thing is supposed to be about cucumbers. Yeah. Sorry. So, I mean, it's like how many different ways are there to preserve it? Because like I grow my garden for the purpose of consuming and preserving. That's why I have a garden. So we do cucumbers I still got cucumbers from last year. So technically it's like whatever.
Yeah. Well, so
now I did miss out on a couple dishes and a couple different things that I like with them. But I mean, it is what it is. It's like you get tired of it. Now like tomatoes, I literally canned diced tomatoes, whole tomatoes, tomato sauce. Like I got about 10 cans in there. No, I got probably 15 cans in there. So, there's a purpose behind that because I can continually, and I'll use them year round, especially in the wintertime. We cook soup at least once a week. So, 1 can a week will get us through.
Yeah.
So
cucumbers is a great example. And I was literally thinking like, is it even worth my internet searches for that? I mean, it's relish. It's cucumber or pickles when it comes to preserving it. In my mind, I was going to be able to juice kale and cucumbers, right? Because that's super expensive when you're trying to buy it in the store. But one, they're really opposing veggies, right? So kale, while I've grown it in the summer, likes it cooler. We know this, right? And cucumbers like it hot. So I'm going to give it a try next year, which means I'll also be growing less pickling varieties. But yeah, I mean, this is a time to kind of think about how much of a thing you want to grow, really what you're actually using it, not what you think you want to use it for, but what you're actually using it, because you're in the midst of it now. Now I'm eating easily a cucumber a day, and that's not like me trying to force it down. Like that's me. I enjoy it. But I mean, a cucumber a day, I'm growing way more than that.
That's a couple plants.
Well, let me say it this way. At the pace that the cucumbers are coming in, it outpaces the way that I'm going to consume them and or preserve them. So again, it may be something different for you, but in this instance, I finally got to the point of, I have enough. I know how to can, I know how to pickle these cucumbers. And now it's like, I overshot that one, just by a few plants, so it's all good.
So now, for next year, like, hey, I can use this trellis space for something else.
Yeah.
And that's like me in the beginning of the year, I set myself up for failure from Jump Street this year. I put out 3 trellises of peas this year. And even though I thoroughly enjoy snow peas, I thoroughly enjoy them so much that I tried to let them go as long as possible. And then I used up valuable time to get other things going. Yeah. So like my green beans, I'm just now starting to get, like they're starting to come in now. You know, I'm at the point now, you know, when you first start getting something like, all right, I got to pick as much as I can to get it to produce. Yeah. That's where I'm at right now. So I'm like, okay, maybe I have a month. When in reality, what I should have done is say, okay, I'm going to plant my peas now and then leave this one or either plant one trellis super early and then just start my green beans. And once they get to where, you know, whatever gets them, just plant another, you know, succession plant. You know, I don't mind getting some stuff all at once because then that allows me to can all at once. So I'm fine with that. But, you know, generally speaking, you know, it all comes down for me as piss poor planning. And the kicker is I thought that I had planned out very well. Yeah. Like I really thought, like when I did it, I was like, I got this. I mean, I worked like a month on it. I was like, I got this hammered down. I got it all figured out. And like every time I went out there to plant something, like I'd have to change a little something. And it just never really worked out like it should. Yeah.
Well, timing it's again, something you should be considering now for next year, because while these things shift based on, you know, weather patterns. If I'm still in Chicago next year, generally speaking, you know, if I look at when I planted my tomatoes and now when I'm getting them, it's maybe a variance of like comparing last year to this year, a week, maybe 2 weeks, because I planted them around the same time last year. And now the question becomes, I have just about, as of the recording, just about 2 months before my frost date. And I'm looking and saying, it's always been a joy for me to take green plants or tomatoes off the plant, because then I'll have fresh tomatoes longer. But it's the timing of it. So now I look, and I'm going to say it again, because I'm going to say it until it becomes true. The idea of planting those tomatoes earlier, considering determinate varieties, right? And then being able to use that space. So I'm adjusting my plants, or planting times. I'm looking at some things that I planted later in June that just never got a fair shot. And I know if I'm going to give this veggie a try, I got to get it in the ground sooner, you know? Right. So, and it's easier now, interestingly enough, because I can actually see some of the tags now, you know, as I move some things out. Yeah. Timing, a good example of the cabbage again. Like I got the timing and the space wrong with that. And so this is probably going to be a cabbage-less year, not because of all the cabbage I killed earlier this year. Well, there's that too, but so I mean, I think these are the things that you're more conscious of, and I'm thinking, I really do want cabbage, right? You know, and so I can make a conscious decision to say that's going to be a part of my next year's plan. And I have some notes when it comes to how to approach it differently next year. Can I go one more, or you want to comment on that one?
Please.
So this is an absolute great time to assess what worked well, right? And things you want to do the same next year. So my collards, and I know you love the whole idea of covering them. I mean, kicking butt. It's a pain in the ass to cover them. It helps me neglect the veggies, which is not the best thing. But anywho, that's something that I've consistently done well over these last few years. And I actually was looking at some older pictures where I didn't take the approach I'm taking now. And cabbage or the collards weren't so successful. So I don't need to, I actually was looking, I keep on saying tulle fabric, and I'm not so sure if I'm ready to recommend it. I don't want to be on the hook for it if you get it and you tear it, but I think I'm going to continue to use it because it's been consistently working for me. You know, so this is one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know? Yeah.
Now I can tell you that one thing that I have made my mind up 50% on is I'm going to install quick access in my beds to put up shade cloth for next summer. Not meaning that I will put it up, but I will have that option to put it in there. That's my plan for next summer.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah, it's well, you know, and it's because of this podcast and the conversations we've had with people. I hear so much about plants under heat stress,
Yeah,
heat stress,
yeah.
heat stress, heat stress. And then we had that stretch of like 3 weeks where it was over 100 degrees every day. And I'm like, man, if I just put that shade cloth up, as much as I don't want to, if it works the way I think it might work, then it could significantly reduce the heat. I mean, you're talking about a 10-degree temperature change underneath in the middle of the day. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
And shade cloth
I'm
is a bit
thinking
different
about
than
it.
what I do with the covering. I mean, I'm basically locking
Yes.
in, and it's such a pain. I know it's not natural with
Yeah.
the cover for you. I mean, the shade cloth, I still get that, but it's such a pain because it's an ordeal to get inside of the bed. Like it's a whole exercise, right? And so I don't bother with it. If I see the white moth around, it's like, oh, I don't want to let them in yet, you know? So that's when
Yeah.
I describe it being a pain. That's what it is. It works really well for veggies that you don't need to get to often. You don't need
Right.
to access often is the way I want to say that.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything crazy, but you know, I've thought about it and thought about it. I thought about it last year, didn't do it. I thought about it at the beginning of this year, didn't do it. And then, you know, we really had that stretch and I was like, man, it'd be stupid for me not to just, you know, and plus it took me a while to kind of figure out how I can make it easy, you know, less resistance. I need less friction in what I do. Because I guess as we've determined, I'm not as lazy of a gardener as I thought. So, but I try to make things easier. So it's like, hey, if I want to do this, then I can just slide it in and put it up real quick. So
Well, no, that's
we'll
the piece.
see how it goes.
That's the piece I like the best because you haven't fully committed to it yet, and that's fine. But you're thinking about ways to put yourself in the best situation because obviously this time next year is too late to do it, right? You know, to start that plan. And it's from what you're describing, it's going to be not so obstructive. You know, it's not going to be like some big, you know, you installing.
It's not a permanent structure.
Yeah.
So, and that was what I did not want as a permanent structure out there. I don't want that at all. I'm not interested in it. It's, you know, I'm cool.
Yeah.
I'm good. You know, but you know, I'm starting to think too, because, you know, wintertime is my time to do a makeover to my garden. You know, what can I add? What can I change? What can I fix? So now is the time as like, I'm out there now. I'm like, what can I do to make things different? What can I do to make things better? You know, I changed my watering situation this year. It's been okay. You know, I'm changing it. I'm going soaker hose. You know, I've done it in the past and I was really happy with it and I'm going to do it again. It's just a pain in the ass to set it up. But, you know, that's causing me to change my garden design.
Wait, you've come back
Because
around.
of
The
that.
soaker hoses don't suck?
No, soaker. I'm not using a soaker hose. I'm using those little shitty spray nozzles.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm misting my stuff every other day. So, but I wanted to give it a go. Nothing has died yet from it. Okay. You know,
Well,
so I know that.
promising.
Yeah, but I get a little worried, you know, when those 100-degree days were here, I put it up after all that. But I put it up at the end, like the last day of it. But if I had it the whole time, I don't know how successful it would have been. And I think there's two things. I think it's those wood chips I put in there as mulch. I don't think they worked as good as I wanted them to. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I'm pulling that shit out of my garden.
I'm
But
disappointed.
I
wanted them to work
solely-
for you. Yeah.
I wanted them to work too, but it's solely because of my gardening style. Okay, it's because I like to direct sow as much as I can into my garden.
Yeah.
That's why it doesn't work. If I didn't direct sow and I was just dropping in starter plants, shit, I'd have that stuff in there all day long. But, you know, it's just not really working out for me. And, you know, so, and it's that and then all this stuff. But if I do go to a soaker hose, you know how my beds are, I have one bed and then there's a 2-foot gap and there's another one. And then there's a 2-foot gap and there's two more. Well, on each one, at minimum, I'm going to eliminate that 2-foot gap in the middle.
Yeah, that's
and
for the
add
water
another,
piece, right?
Well, I'm adding another little bit of bed there.
Oh, okay. I thought you were doing
So I'm gonna
irrigation
add-
right there.
No, I'm going to add 8 square feet of bed on each one in the middle just to connect them. So when I do the soaker hose, they can just go around. Because that's why I did not use it, is because I didn't want it to have to cut the soaker hose, make a connection, bury it, pull it back up. I didn't want to do all that. So I've just like, what's the best way? Well, hell, I get another 8 square feet on each bed, 16 square feet total. Not to mention the other piece that I might add that I haven't decided if it's a good idea or not. But it's just creating that less friction. It's like I can use this to run the hose and I can grow more food. Okay. And I don't have to buy anything other than some soil.
Yeah.
Because I already have, like, I'll be removing the wood so I can just cut the wood and add it. So it's really a no-brainer on my part. And I don't know why I didn't think of it before. But, I just kind of, it is what it is, But now is the time that I thought about that because I'm out there. I'm like, what can I do different? And because I changed the watering system and I have that damn hose going over the gap, I'm like, well, I can't even walk through it now. You know what I mean? But now that I've gone away from overhead watering, I'm like, I'm not going to do it anymore. Now, I would never tell anybody not to overhead water because I don't think, I think if you do it right, it's not going to cause as many issues, but...
So I have some winters.
I have a present for you.
Am I going to receive it now or is that the teaser?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're going to receive it now. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to do the recipe of the day.
Okay.
This episode is proudly brought to you by San Diego Seed Company, a company that is dedicated to providing organic heirloom varieties of seeds for your small urban farm. That's right. You heard me. You are a small urban farmer. You provide food for your family and share with your neighbors, and they are dedicated to providing you with the best seeds for a bountiful harvest. Check them out at SanDiegoSeedCompany.com or on social media at, you guessed it, San Diego Seed Company.
All right, Batavia. I have a recipe that I'm going to give out. And I need you to do me a favor while I give it out.
Okay.
I need you to take both of your hands, put them up, and set them on your shoulders while I give out this recipe.
I'm a little teapot?
Because I'm giving... Yeah, you're a little teapot, short and stout. So today's recipe of the day is a knockoff Clausen pickle recipe that I'm giving out. You can't write it down, though. You're going to have to come back and listen to it like everybody else.
Oh, wait. Yes. I'm going to grow twice as many cucumbers next year. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm not going to write it down. I'm going to memorize it. Go ahead. Go.
All right. So, and just to let you know, I have literally held this back from Batavia until this exact moment. So,
and I was very close to saying throw the whole damn cucumber. Yep. Okay. All right. We're here. I'm not going to begrudge this moment. Yeah. We're here.
No, don't begrudge it. This is specifically because I love all of you. I held it back from Batavia.
That makes no sense whatsoever. But here we are.
Yes, it does. I did it for the people. For the people.
You think the people didn't want me to have this recipe?
No, they want to be at first.
Okay, maybe so. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So, for a knockoff Clausen pickle recipe, you are going to need, first of all, a whole lot of cucumbers. This recipe says you need 35 to 40 cucumbers, 1 gallon of cold water, 1 cup of cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons of pickling spice, 2/3 cup of canning salt, 4 cloves of garlic, and 4 tablespoons of dill seed, preferably dill heads from your garden. That's it. And you don't bath them. You do the counter method on doing that, on doing the pickles.
Wait,
if you don't have...
What's the counter method?
You don't know how to do that?
No, what's the counter method?
So the counter method is you put them all together. Well, hold on, wait. Let's come back to that.
Okay.
So you're going to take everything and you got to warm up everything but the cold water because you got to get it all to dissolve and mix it and all that. and then you add it to your cucumbers. You cut them any way you want. You can slice them, you can dice them, you can spear them, you can do them whole, whatever. But what we do is we put them on our counter, and every couple days you leave them covered, and every couple days you come up and you have to scrape the film off the top of it.
Oh, I've heard of this. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the trick.
Yeah. You have them in
And you
water
will
though,
have-
right? They're soaking in
You
water.
have them in the brine.
Yeah, okay.
In the brine. Yeah.
Okay.
That is not the exact method. And to be exact, you need to go online and read about doing the counter method.
Sure.
But don't water bath these. Don't water bath these. Don't water bath these, because it'll make them soft and you'll lose that
Crunch,
crisp.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And you need to have your pickles need to be they don't need to be over ripened. It's very important that they're not over ripened, because that's the thing about those pickles is they have that specific crunch. And they literally taste like Clausen pickles. So you take your cucumbers. If you do this, you should have, I think, 8 quarts of pickles.
Okay.
Which would make $40 worth of pickles off of 40 cucumbers.
Oh, that's tight. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it. So, yeah, I'm gonna put this on Instagram today, and if you're hearing it late, that's simply because you're not following us on Instagram, and that's your problem. So
and you don't
come follow
deserve
us on
these
Instagram.
pickles. You know
You don't deserve it on time.
You know the work
So,
I put in to get to this recipe.
Batavia almost did a change.org on it.
The people want it now.
They want it.
Actually,
so
I'm going to be disappointed in the people. I've expected the people to write in, to write their congressman, write the president. I've expected more from the audience, because we should have had this recipe a month ago. Why? Because I wanted it a month ago.
Well, and what I was doing is I was waiting until I was going to make pickles. And when I realized, like, I'm not going to make pickles this year, then I was like, I need to give out the recipe. So,
yeah, no, but no.
It is going to be.
I appreciate it because I told you last year I made like a really shitty batch of pickles. And I had some family here, and I was like, you guys want to try the pickles I made? And it's my sister / cousin-in-law. She's like, but didn't you say they were bad? I'm like, yeah, they are kind of bad, but I still got them, you know, so I begrudgingly finished them.
I'm sure you don't, but have you ever watched the Andy Griffith Show?
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry. Yes.
The pickle recipe.
I don't remember that
episode?
one. My mom was an avid watcher. I mean, I don't think she watches it anymore, but I'll have to ask her.
She would know the pickle one.
Okay.
Yeah. Go on Netflix and look up it's Aunt Bee's Pickles.
Okay.
It's hilarious. And
I'll check it out.
Now I will think about you whenever I watch it.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm game.
So,
all right. I'm excited about it.
But yeah, it's simple. It's a simple recipe, but it's I was with you. We kept making pickles. I was like, man, these taste like crap. And I literally only like Clausen pickles. That's all I like. So I said, if we're going to make them, we got to find them. And I searched high and low and we came across it. So, now when I make pickled okra, I like bread and butter pickled okra.
You know what? I actually got the whatever the spice is for the bread and butter. I'm like, the hell with him and his fancy pickle recipe. Because I already made a batch. I think it was just dill. Yeah. For those that aren't going to be able to watch this, I am twisting my head back and forth and shimmying my shoulders. And so I made the regular dill pickles, and the smell is exactly how dill pickles smell. And I waited a couple of weeks because I couldn't wait any longer, and they were okay. They weren't like, I'm not going to give them away for Christmas presents or anything like that. They were okay. They'll do, if you will. But I didn't want to make another batch of that same one, right? So I was going to...
Well, look, if you have 20 pickles, you just...
cut it in half, yeah.
Half the recipe. Yeah. If you have a quarter of it, you just do the math.
Yeah.
So,
well, what I'm going to do, I'm hoping that, because again, size is pretty important, and my cucumbers have gotten away from me, right? Based on the original conversation. So
I'm showing everybody on YouTube.
Yeah, and we appreciate it. We can't see that. Or maybe we can. I can't see it through IG. But I'm going to cut off all of my cucumbers, F it. And I'm going to hope to get a bumper crop of them because I really want to make this recipe. But mine are all over the place when it comes to I have cucumbers I'm cutting and the seeds inside are as big as my hand. Total exaggeration, but you guys get my point.
Right.
So I'm hoping to get a batch of them.
If you cut them, they'll come back like that.
Yeah, that's my plan. Like I'm hoping to get another batch of good, because the plants are generally still healthy. There's a little bit of, some damage going on, but generally they're still healthy. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah. If you cut them back, they'll come back.
Yeah.
Because you still got another solid month of good weather, right?
Yeah. I'm excited. That was a gift. Sometimes I just don't put two and two together. It never occurred to me that was the gift. Okay, all right.
I know. I was, and when I was like, I'm looking for this recipe. I figured you would know what it was, but then I was like, she ain't gonna know.
Nope.
So that is my gift to you, Batavia.
Thank you. Is this?
You are more than welcome.
It's not my half birthday. All right, it's past my half birthday, but I'll accept it as a late half birthday present.
You can take, or an early Christmas.
No, nope. You're not getting off the hook for that.
Damn it. Yeah, by the way, since we're talking about that, my Christmas presents for everybody is totally screwed. I had I'm reconstructing a lot of things right now. So I'm taking all of the mulch out of my beds and moving them into my flower beds.
Oh, yeah, because they need it, right?
Bitch.
Yeah.
Do they need it? It's been horrible. Like, I guess the birds flung bird seed all in there, and I just had like all these weird ass plants growing, started choking everything out.
That's weird.
And then like I have how I have creeping Jenny in my flower beds that you literally can't kill. It gets invasive.
Yeah.
It's all dead. All of it's dead. So, which I'm actually not upset about. Mm-hmm. I'm cool with it being dead because now I have room to stuff other stuff in there next year.
Yeah, that was my feeling about the lilies, the daylilies that I dug up. I'm just hoping that I got all of the what do you call them? What's the thing that when you plant bulbs? I'm hoping I got them all. I don't have to deal with them next year, but we'll see. It's almost impossible for you to get. I don't remember the kind. Like I think it was a tiger. The orange ones.
You're getting rid of them?
Yeah, man. They they were stolen. I dug them out from the open lot behind my house some years back, and I felt guilty about it all of these years. So I've gotten rid of the evidence. Two, they have, they eventually run their course. Right. So they had stopped producing flowers throughout the year. Like at the very beginning of the year, it's nice because of the season, rather, like spring. It's nice because they were one of the first things to sprout. But then it was just like no flowers and all leaves. And it's just a waste of space for me. So that's the bed where I was able to get like a 2x4 foot bed in. So
I need somebody to donate me $500. I have this brilliant idea that I'm going to do for my yard.
Brilliant?
It's not going to happen this year. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Okay, all right.
I was online looking at bulbs, and they apparently sell like bulb packages that are like basically a garden design, tells you where to plant them and everything. I'm like,
that's it.
Yes,
That's
please.
Yeah.
Yes, please. That's what I need. Well, I mean, it's like, it's some places that like don't really matter. So like I won't be like tending them as much. Yeah. So it'd be really nice to kind of have like almost like a pre-made, like, yes, do it. You know what I mean?
Paint by numbers, plant by,
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. And it bloom all at certain times and everything. I'm like, damn, that's what I need. You know what I mean? Like some stuff I would like to get creative with, but some stuff I just want something in the ground. Yeah. And a bulb is pretty damn useful. You put it in the ground, it grows, it stops growing. Yeah. And you're done.
Yeah, so. I still have a secret confession. I still have bulbs from last year that I got like, I don't know, 70% off or something. And I just didn't get them in the ground. And I know generally it's not recommended to save them to the following year if they never got a chance to go through the whole process. And I'm going to be honest, I may have to count it as a loss because that's just not me and my style. When we were talking about earlier, your style of gardening, like if I had more space, then fine. But I don't want to like find space in my yard to plant a couple of bulbs that are only going to bloom for, a couple of months at that. So I'm not sure.
That's why I went with why I want to do this is because they're set up to where they bloom throughout the season. Like different sections will be blooming.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you, man. Like bulbs, like first of all, I hate tulips.
Well,
I don't like tulips.
I think they're beautiful for like the first 7, 8, 9, 10 days.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, cool, I got tulips. Or like God forbid you get the flu or something and you miss the whole damn thing. You know what I mean? It's like, screw this.
Look, you're
like,
finally
damn,
over
I was up in the bed.
Look, you're finally over the cold night sweats and all, and you look out the window and it's like, womp, womp, womp.
You know how like it makes you real weak, and then you get up and you're like, all right, I'm gonna walk to the end of the driveway, and then you get out there and you're like, damn, I had tulips last week. Wait till next year.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So, but this, you know, these things like I've looked a lot into bulbs, and I'm not into the spring bulb only. You know, like my wife really likes crocuses.
Yeah.
And so I respect that, you know, and here we'll get crocuses bloom in like January. So it's like, I respect that she likes crocuses. So I want to get her some crocuses because God bless her soul. She went out and bought quote unquote crocuses, and she had been calling them crocuses, and they were hyacinths for like 3 years. I'm like, baby, those are not crocuses. I'm like, I know what they are because they used to pop up through the snow, you know, and it's like, no, but so I want to get some of those, and, you know, but it's like, damn, they bloom in January. They're gone by February, maybe March. And then, you know, so it's all right. We'll work through it. I don't know. Bulbs. They aggravate me. They're expensive.
Yeah, well, you know what? They are expensive, but I always see them on sale. Again, if I had towards the end of the year, but it's that timing, like they're on sale because you basically gotta like get in your car, dig a hole, and plant them in your car.
Yeah,
like from your car, like, you know, bring your shovel with you, because it's right at the cusp of it. I've seen some things online about people planting bulbs in January, but then you get into that whole, it's this specific variety and your temperature needs to be this, that, and the other, and it's like, you know,
it's too much.
I'm not interested in investing that. The next time that I purchase a house and it has it's a ranch, remember the whole dream, one floor, it's gonna have a space where I can just,
I got one for you right down the street.
Okay, all right,
we can stop this business and just do it
head
in
on
person.
over. Yeah.
3 houses down, we could have a massive garden.
Oh,
I got
listen,
you,
I'm
cuz.
telling you, I'll tend the garden.
I got you.
Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and then you can tend it the rest of the week. But yeah, it's we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. No guarantees for bulbs this year.
No, they just put them out here, and I'm like, why are you putting them out now? It's still 90 degrees, like. But, you know, people get out there, and I planted bulbs in the spring, and they just, you know, and I knew better, but they said you could, but I know you can't plant them then. I know.
I think we were on the phone when you were planting them. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, I just bought like 300 bulbs, and I got like 4 flowers.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well.
It's kind of ridiculous, but, you know, there's going to be a lot of additions of flowers next year. So. We'll see what happens.
One more note on the what to do, you know, planning for next year. On the flower note.
Oh, I forgot we were talking about that.
I mean, it's all good. On the flower note, that's a great example of I sowed flowers back here early in the spring, planted them in May and June. Then I went and because I was missing some color and some specific flowers, bought some flowers from the stores. And some of either kinds, they've petered out. And it's like, we're at the end of August. Like you said, I have another month of really good weather. But then I have another 2 months before I could expect anything to be frozen, right? You know? So I did start some more flowers in the middle of July. But now I know that I actually need to be more, since, again, I'm not afraid of going back to the grow room. I need to be more conscious of that whole succession sowing indoors to bring flowers out. Because I have like 3 or 4 pots that one of two things are going to happen. Either I'm going to toss the pot or I'm going to replant some more flowers. So,
yeah.
But I'm limited now because I only have so many, which again, you know how much I enjoy them. So I haven't really planned out the timing of it next year, but that's going to be much easier to plan out than the garden timing we were talking about. And that's needed too. So
If I can get snapdragons to grow next year, then I will be a total flower success.
yeah. They're in my top.
That's my goal.
They're my top list.
That's my goal. And here they can be perennial here. Mm-hmm. So that's my goal.
I had a volunteer
We'll see how it
snapdragon
goes.
in a crack in my sidewalk on my patio, or a crack in my patio in my backyard. So
That's not a bad volunteer.
no, not at all.
Oh, and by the way, I'll never plant zinnias in my garden again.
I want to plant all the zinnias. Yeah, they're
Not in my garden. I will
gotcha.
plant them, but not in my garden. Too big, too much.
I did 2 of the in the front yard, the long beds that are in the middle. I direct sowed some seeds like right in the corners of the bed on the inside, and they worked out perfectly. But I definitely get your point when it comes. They're in the raised beds too, so they haven't gotten that tall. But I mean, I've seen the ones you're talking about in your yard, the one in particular. So
Yeah, I got them in the corners of the beds, and they're just giant. Yeah. So, you live and learn.
that's it.
I get flowers, so I'm happy.
What was that?
It's a win for me.
One seed. Look at what one seed will do.
It's amazing, isn't it? One seed, yeah. We'll do a whole episode about wins and failures come wintertime.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to tell the good people?
When is this going to air?
I don't know. September. Don't make any promises you can't keep.
I have one more zucchini plant that's produced at least 2 zucchini. F the squash vine boar. Well, no, not really, because he's completely won this year. But I'm coming away with at least 2 late season zucchinis. I mean, actually, like 2 zucchini. That's it. That's all I need. So
Win.
don't give up.
Win.
Don't give up.
Never, never give up. Never give up.
That's what I got.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first on the Backyard Gardens podcast. Get out there, plan your gardens. Get out there right now. Take notes on what sucks, what's a win, what's a loss. Keep it real. Keep it safe. Wear your mask. Wear it alone in your car so I can laugh. And until next time, everybody, stay cool. Love you guys.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to us today. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Backyard Gardens Pod, and we share gardening tips and clips from the show, and we would love to see your gardens and share them with everybody. So if you want to join us and you want to share your gardens, feel free to use the hashtag BYG Podcast. And if you want to see us on video, you can find us on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we have the full show and clips and all the recipes broken down for you. And until next time, learn to grow and grow for change, and we're going to call it a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.